We could look at, let me put this data on screen, just shy of 3/4 of the organizations in the study that did have a servitized solution, they stated they had to change their sales approach. And I think for anyone that's touched on servitization, or anyone that's spent time with it, that's an obvious thing. But for those organizations that haven't yet, and have just seen all the wonderful examples of why it's great to move into this model, it's my job to make sure people understand that there are major challenges as well, and that it doesn't fit, as we've discussed, for every organization in your client base. But for me, one of the big things is this shift in sales mentality. It's hard enough for anyone that's sold product, it's a lot easier to sell something in a box than it is to sell something intangible like a service. Then to sell that on a servitized basis becomes even more complex. I think you do need a challenger mentality within your sales team. There's a fantastic video I'll link in this where I did an interview with former general manager of service for EMEA for Siemens, who talked about this. Tony Chapman, great guy, retired now. Because consultative sales isn't enough when it comes to a servitization. You need to be able to ask the questions that push the customer to actually genuinely understand what their own pain points are that they may not realize. It may be beneath the waterline, as it were. I suppose one thing I'd like to kind of surface and get your insight, that I've stated a clear case there that where my belief is. Do you think that's the case? Dan, let's start with you, because you mentioned being able to sit in these different areas and have these different hats on.
Yeah.
Do you think that we underestimate how different it is to sell servitization, and who should we be selling it to? Let me add that into it as well.
Yeah, I think the thing that was most surprising to me here was that it was below 75%. I think if we look more generically at other processes other than field service, the wide range of things that selling a servitization and delivering a servitization model might require you to change your recruitment practices, for example, with your HR processes needing to change. It might mean that you need to change your billing model and your finance systems need to change. It might mean that you need to get more proactive and more efficient in your supply chain, which means that warehouse management software needs to change. So I think if we look at the bigger picture there, I think the number would have been even higher if it was not just about the sales processes, but about everything that could be impacted by this, And I think that's a real key thing to think of, is that, and it's not just about putting field service management software anymore. There's a lot of tools out there that, you've worked with a lot of them yourself. I've met a lot of them at your events, and they're all very much of a muchness. The real value comes from the software, the platforms, and the partners who can deliver a more all-encompassing, bigger picture approach, whether that's with looking at sales processes, looking at scheduling mechanisms, or even looking at those wider concepts like HR and finance. So I do think it is very much overlooked, to the point where I think that number is a little lower than where I would have probably put it.
Johan, what do you think? Is Dan right? Should it be a higher number? Is it, I think it's a very, very valid point, because we do have, and remember that our audience is service leaders, global service directors generally. So that'll be where the data is slightly focused, so there will be biases in the data. I would preface it as well as always saying that no way around it, the field service news audience is a slightly more educated audience than the average service director, by default, because they're reading content that is giving them these insights. They're watching videos like this. But would you agree with that when we start to strip it down and look at all the complexity, actually that 75% might even go up? What's your thoughts, Johan?
Yeah, I also expected it to be higher. I was thinking more lower 80% thereabouts. I think, to me, the main thing that stands out is if you go from selling a product, and I've been there myself in my life, and now having to sell a servitization solution, it requires a bit of a mindset change as well as a culture change within a company, apart from just utilizing different technologies in order to make sure that you can actually provide those services. At the end of the day, I think it's got to do with touching or going back to what we discussed earlier, selecting your customers, knowing what the problem to be solved is and what the goals are that they want to achieve, and then kind of selling them the capability to actually reach those goals, as opposed to just walking in box dropping a product that you know that they were looking for. So it's a completely different picture, trying to sell that service as opposed to just selling a standard product.
Hi there, Kris here from Field Service News. Hope you're doing well. Just a quick reminder that if you've caught your timing right on this and you're watching it as it's current, so July 2023, then you will be able to access the full-length version of this discussion. Just head over to FSN Free. There's links, depending on where you're watching this. If you're watching it on YouTube or LinkedIn, there's links below. If you're watching it from our site, the links may be to the side or at the bottom of the page, depending on what browser you're using and whether you're on mobile or desktop. But there will be a link below that will allow you to access the full content, taking about less than 30 seconds. You can sign in with LinkedIn now as well, and it's forever free, and you'll get a selection of monthly resources. And this month, this is one of the great resources that's there. Always the resources are premium quality content, so it's worth signing up 30 seconds at a time. Go and check that out. Enjoy the rest of the video. Thanks for your time. Take care. Bye bye.